ready. Hold tight.
Hold on to your hats, boys.
Libos.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to another episode of the Wednesday Week.
Just what the flipping Nora are you all lot doing?
I'm still in there. I'm still right behind him.
It was just a very well thought out tactical plan by Danny.
I want go!
I can literally feel the steam coming out your ears.
So it's like a fun little post-game snack.
For Wednesday Week!
Hello, good evening, and welcome to another episode of the Wednesday Week. This week in the penultimate game of the season, which was the last home game of the season, Sheffield Wednesday were 1-1 drawers coming out of the game at Hillsborough on Saturday. They did a lap of honour, which was severely mooted by what was 1 million stewards, and I assume we will talk about the reasoning why there were so many stewards there as we get into it. Protests were planned, protests will happen. There's a lot to get through tonight, boys and girls, and Beth is absolutely stinking tonight, which I'm really excited about it. So, Beth, tell us about your night last night, special evening, wasn't it?
It was lovely. Me and Emma were at the EFL Awards. I'm struggling already. Jesus, let's. We had a lovely time. My bank account and my body are crying today. Yeah, no complaints. Nice time.
No complaints because you're probably still pissed up. The hangover will kick in halfway through this show. Now, John is also rotten. He's got a stinking cold and been relegated to the spare room. How are you getting on, John?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Yeah, like I say, in the spare room, but ready to rock and roll and discuss our last home game of the season.
Simon, I feel like it's been an age since I've seen you on one of these. My apologies. I think we keep missing each other. How are you, boss? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm at the other end, 2 weeks of COVID and a week of antibiotics, and now I am human again. So it's amazing.
Yeah, I had the Rona a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't feel it the first time round. You know what I mean? You know, you get it because the airflow test or whatever it was said that you had it, and you went, I feel actually fine. And then the last two strains that have done the rounds have absolutely floored me. And I am a big stag. You know what I mean? Right, listen, so we've got a lot to get through tonight, so I'm just going to crack straight on. John, this is the lineup against Portsmouth, 1-1 draw. Charles remains in goal. Valerie Shea Charles again at the back. Ihekwe Johnson, Armstrong Bannon back in the fray. Patterson with his 8th start. On the bounce, which whoever saw that coming 6 months ago is off their head. Gassama, Windass, and Smith. Couple of changes from what you'd say 3 months ago, but not recently, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's been well documented the number of injuries we've had to our centre halves in particular. So we've had a bit of a shuffle, but we've got the back two, who I like to refer to as Charles and Steady, which is Shea Charles and Ihekwe, who's a nice steady player, and obviously nobody wants to see Charles in the back four, but he's done admirably, I think, really, to be honest. And so to see them two again, nice to see Icky back, who's improved a lot, I think, under Danny Rule, to be honest, this season.
Well, we'll be talking about that in tonight's hot topic, John. Yeah. Let's not tread on the toes of the upcoming chat. Now, I need to point in your direction of this comment from Oliver D. He's gone, who really cares about the match, to be honest? I get it. I understand. We're just going to smash through it, and then we're going to get to the beans on toast. Beth, sorry, John, as you said, Ihekwe greatly improved under Danny Roll, and Shea Charles playing at the back, who's actually a very formidable centre-back. It was nice to see it in the flesh. It was great to see it that day. Beth, let's get through the game incidents, and the first one was the goal. And I feel like that might be a swan song for Callum Patterson. It was quite an emotional one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think I tried to tweet something like this, but I feel like that was so Callum Patterson. Like, I'm going to scuff it. I'm going to hope it goes the right place, but it's going to pay off, and then I'm going to do a silly celebration. Like, if that's his last contribution for us, I think it's very on brand.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, what was it, Simon? It was, I think, headed down from Smudge, and then I think Armstrong tried to slap one, and it just fell to Patterson's feet, and somehow he's managed to volley it, but into the floor, and it's hit the underside of the crossbar. That is a classic Callum Patterson finish, that, right?
It was Armstrong channeling his inner Ingleson for a shot, which was going everywhere but towards the goal, and then Callum just volleyed it into the floor, and we were like, oh. and it went up the inside of the bar and went in, and then he ran off with his lovely new mullet that he's sporting. In front.
So
I did actually expect the knee slide and the point, to be honest, because he headed towards the north, and I thought if this is going to be his swan song, he's going to do the knee slide and the point from the Peterborough game. I was a bit disappointed he didn't.
Rubbish. Boo, Callum Patterson. At this point, John, right, we've scored quite early doors. At this point, did you feel like, hang on, we're going to batter these? Because the last time we played them last game of the season, we smashed them 4-1, irrespective of George Hurst opening the score in after about 10 minutes. So, I thought at this point, we're going to batter these now. That's it. See you later. They're safe. We're safe. Let's just batter them at home.
Yeah, I have that feel about it because it was the last game, because they were both clubs, I mean, us beforehand, but then recently as well, safe from relegation. So it had a little bit of a very, very friendly feel to it, almost like a testimonial type feel to it, where you could see, like, people aren't, whoever scores first, they might go on and win at a canter, because other teams would be like, yeah, whatever, And even their fans, and special mention actually to their fans on a Saturday, from the South Coast. I thought their support was tremendous. They made a lot of noise, they brought a lot of fans. And even after we'd scored, they were still jumping about and celebrating. Obviously, it's, they're safe, and you can attribute a lot of it to that. But I thought it made for a really, despite what else was going on the day, I thought it made for a really nice atmosphere for us and them, to be honest.
Well, let's get into the atmosphere later on, because I feel like the two are going to be intertwined into the next topic. But I keep saying, let's just bash through this game. Let's just bash through it. Let's get through it. Beth, next one was their goal. So Valerie played a wayward pass down the right-hand side. I think it was Valerie, wasn't it? And then it breaks left. Ball played on the edge of the 6-yard box. Johnson didn't track his man. Easy tapping for Blair. And as been said on this show a number of times, boo, Blair. Boo, Blair.
Yeah, it was disappointing. Johnson, it's really, I was just thinking about Johnson quite a lot with this. Oh my God, I'm so.
Come on, keep going.
Right.
Come on, you can do it.
I'm trying to say that he's not very good at one-on-one defending, which is really funny because offensively one-on-one, I feel like he's quite good. Yeah. But it reminded me a lot of that, the Marcus Edwards goal against us at Burnley, where Johnson's kind of on him, but not quite. And he's like, you're in the right place, but you're not doing the right thing. We discussed last week a lot that fullback, wing-back is more his position rather than fullback. And I feel like the formation shift of only playing four as a flat line has affected Johnson somewhat. Would you agree? I'd say so, yeah. Yeah, it's such a shame that we only seem to play good football with three at the back, because I'm so sick of it.
I think there's been a number of managers, hasn't there, Simon? I think we discussed a few times that a number of managers have tried to play four at the back, and every time we've had his arse handed to us, most notably Ipswich last season, tried four at the back. What was it, 6-0?
That's when Johnson went missing again, wasn't it? When he just... I think with Marvin, he's one of these guys who'll just drop further deeper when he realises he's actually got a job to do in defence, because it's not his game. If we're playing attacking football, he's the guy who will drop onto the wing and run at the fullback on the opposite side. But as soon as he has to defend, or he realises he's actually got a real job to do because the guy on his wing is good, he turns anonymous and disappears into the part. And that's what happened on Saturday. Was he just left his man, and the guy got in front of him, and it was an absolute goal that summed up our defending this season. It was pretty much Wednesday defending 101 from the start of this season to the end of this season.
It was literally a carbon copy of the goal that Sheffield United scored, but from the other side.
Yep. Yeah.
How someone gets that amount of space on the edge of the 6-yard box is absolutely.
And if you remember back, Paul Valentin got a right roasting off Stevie on the podcast following that.
Yeah. Who was notably absent as well on Saturday. Now, we've had a few comments here. We've got, I'm surprised Chansiri didn't charge double bubble, the privilege of being there to wish a fond farewell to LP2 and others. Slappy's been on. He says, great mullet and a magnum tash, referring to Callum Patterson. What an absolute geezer. I'm going to miss Callum Patterson if he goes. And Matt Strickland says he's like a young Tom Selleck. Many people are commenting John's been on and says Bethany regretting the last few shots last night. Did you have any emergency Jaeger bombs last night, Beth, about 3 a.m.?
I have lost quite a lot of time after about 11 p.m. As far as I know, it was just wine.
Wine.
But I could be corrected.
Wine. If you've ever seen that Mickey Flanagan stand-up Out, wine was created to be an accompaniment to a meal. And you can change your flavors to as to what you're eating. No, and now it's become what women drink to get absolutely boshed up. And now the blokes are on it now as well. And if you get on the banter bus on an away day, blokes with bottles of rosé and tequila rosé, we're such lads now. You know what I mean? Long gone are the days of WKD Blue. And we've got Slappy's been on. He says someone bring Beth a Cocodamol, bless her. Craig's actually doubled down on Marvin Johnson and said, really hope we don't see MJ next season. He's awful at defending. At the risk of trying to be balanced, I feel like we're playing him out of position, but I'm being kind. I'm trying to offer a different angle on it. And Sharman's been on and said, I adopt the same faraway looking work Zoom call, lads. Give her a break. So Beth's here just to make the four windows look all right. Now, after that, we had Valerie shooting, cutting inside it, tries to hit the bottom corner, goalkeeper saved it. Second half, Gassama got replaced. Another poor performance from Gassama, John.
Yeah, and he's not shy of taking him off, is he, Danny? He's like, I think earlier on in that game as well, I particularly remember Bannon having a right go at him for not trying. I think he just loose. Gassama is one of those really frustrating players where he'll do the hard work, skin a couple of players, and then think, I want to try and skin him again, and then lose the ball. And I think Bannon were having a right go at him. You could see arms flying around and everything. And body language of Gassama, I was thinking, he ain't coming out second now. He's going to get pulled because he just, he's a young lad. Baz is our experienced player and a captain, vocal, little fiery dude. And I just thought he's not on it today, Gassama. So I weren't shocked at all, Dan, that he got. But
when Masaba came on, I thought if Masaba had put his shoes on the right feet, I think he could have been a bit of
Well, they're like 1A and 1B, aren't they? Them two. It's like they've got the same problems and the same skills and the same strengths and weaknesses. They're obviously like two sides of the same coin, aren't they? Really, but
it's absolutely been fascinating watching Gassama and Masaba, John, because you've got. Masaba was the better of the two, and somebody asked me on this show actually. They said, "Why do you always talk about them in the same breath? Why do when we talk about one, we always talk about another?" And it's exactly what you were saying. They both have been guilty of taking one touch too many as they get into the 18. They play a similar position, albeit sometimes on different sides. And when one's in form, the other one seems to be utter trash. I'd love to see them both in form at the same time.
This is it. I know it's a very, very poor man's like, why can't we get them in the same side like Gerrard and Lampard for England, isn't it? A very, very poor version of that, where you're trying to get one on each side, trying to be having good games and on it and be effective, but invariably one's not on it, and so they get replaced. And then we were like this, weren't we? And we've spoke about it for months on the podcast, where Masaba was up here and Gassama was down here, and then they've gone like that, and now I think it's coming back again. I think it's like weighing scales, isn't it? And it's coming back again, and it's like Masaba's showing more now, but
Oh well, we'll see what happens next week at Watford. Now, Beth, Masaba dances his way to the age of 18. A player, a professional footballer, coming in with that amount of space and time should be able to hit the target, right? I mean, he ballooned it over at the top end. Like what did he put? Like I said before, has he got shoes on the right feet or what?
Yeah, I thought he had a great game. I think it's a shame that he is starting to play well now. That timing is just like really unlucky and really disappointing. Like if he was starting to cook like this in February, March, like we could have been having a very different conversation round now about what we've got left to play for. But that was pretty crap. But it was also
I'm just going to make a note of that, ladies. Yeah, just hang on a minute. That was pretty crap.
Insightful analysis there, Beth.
Yeah. I tell you what, I'm enjoying this. Beth, if you ever need to feel better about yourself, look at the first podcast after the after the playoff final. If you go back to May 23, there's 4 of us sat here like this. And Holly and Simon have still got their, jester hats on and inflatables around the face.
Alternatively, watch the podcast where we interviewed John Hawkes, and Dave had drunk half a bottle of whiskey, I think.
Yeah, I got absolutely battered. So look, it happens to the best of us, and I'm going to torture you all the way through this. My apologies, Beth, in advance. Jay Vlogs has been on and says this season's finishing throughout. The team hasn't been good enough. I agree. I feel like there was a bit more this week than prior weeks in terms of just having a pop and having a dig. I still like Shalabar had one towards the end with a great ball from Ihekwe straight through the middle. And it was saved. I mean, what were your takeaways, Simon? Let's wrap that game up for me.
I was going to say I was really disappointed with Portsmouth because they got nothing to play for, and I thought they would come out and have a go at us. You'd see 2 teams who've got not a great deal to play for have a go at each other, and Pompey just seemed to sit back. It was almost like they needed the draw where they didn't, and we've been guilty of missing open gilt edge chances up front all season. We went through a patch, didn't we, before Christmas of everybody getting goals and not being a problem scoring, but we did have a problem scoring. It was the fact is that our strikers still weren't scoring, and now everybody else has stopped scoring. Kasama, Masaba, Windass, and we haven't got those avenues from elsewhere, and it's blatantly obvious now that the guys up front, although I like Smith and I like Pato, but he's not a striker. Ugbo, he's just gone AWOL. I think Windass was guilty a few times. We haven't had that clinical finish up front, and then because we are fragile at the back, that tells the story of our season. And to be honest, like I said before, the game on Saturday summed up our season completely from start to finish.
Yeah, Sharma's just put a comment up there saying scoring in shonky defending have been the story of this year. But we can get into that, but I feel like we'll leave this topic for next week about whether this season's been a success based on last one. I also want to pull at the thread that Danny's managed to pull off a mid-table finish with players who weren't his signings, and his signings have been pretty shit. Stay tuned for that one next week. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Okay, so I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to wrap that up because that Portsmouth game was, it was just a thing that happened. If you look at the statistics, we battered them on the stats. A lot of possession, a lot more. 19 shots to 2 is absolute insanity for us and the way we've played, because we've spoke at depth about not kicking the ball towards the goal, and 19's impressive. And then look at this one. If I would print that out, my yellow cartridge would run out on my printer in terms of shots on target, shots off target, block shots, many shots, all the shots. Now, that was it. Right, that was that game. That's it, gone out the way. Let's talk about the meat on toast here. Let's talk about the thing that probably has been circling over the last 3 or 4 weeks, much since the derby where it's gathered pace, and that's the protest. Now, boys and girls, just in case you don't know, there's been a point where there are 7 of us that are in this podcast. There's 7 of us that may have different opinions and different views and things like that. And Beth, I know you're part of the women's supporters group as well, helping us out this week. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer you a platform this week, guys, on the panel here, to tell me your personal opinion on it. Because there's times where you kind of think, I might have to hold back a bit. We might get a bit of shit in terms of, but do you know what? Just lay it all out. I want you to take a minute, have a think, and let's just get into it. Let's absolutely talk about it. I'm sick of getting splinters on my ass, so I'm just going to give you a couple of seconds to have a think about that, because that's nice, isn't it?
Brace yourself. Some people are gonna try and sell you some things.
So right then, the big elephant in the room as we started this podcast were the protests that took place, because these ones seemed to gather pace. There was a big march through Hillsborough Park. However, there was some preceding events that happened before this protest took place. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I need to pull me up because I've tried to do this from memory. I'm going to try and tell you a timeline of events of what's happened, and then we'll get right into it. So the meeting minutes from the EP group with the chairman are teased. they're not released. This takes a number of days to be released over the bank holiday weekend. We were warned that the bank holiday weekend would be a sticking point. A protest was organised from the Crucible to the ground with a meet at Hillsborough Park. The minutes were then released late on Friday evening, weren't they? And the focus shifted from what was in the minutes to what's missing. Everybody became very cynical and went, well, the focus here is what's missing from the minutes. Ian Bennett offered to stand down. Ian Bennett is the chairman of the trust, chairman of the EP, I believe, or chairman of the trust. Beth, can you clarify that for me?
The trust.
He's the chairman of the trust. We had him on the show a couple of weeks ago. I just wanted to make sure I got his title right. Really well-spoken gentleman. For lack of a better term, led the protest, offered to stand down. That offer was rejected. And then the night before the game, we saw some graffiti outside the ground saying, Chancery out, sell up, and all the rest of it. Then a few posters turned up. And then the protest took place. There must have been 200-300 people at Hillsborough Park. I saw that gradually gather pace, and there was a lot more yellow shirts and yellow balloons as time went on. And then the protest took place. Now, this is the interesting one for me, because I think this is what the guys in charge of the process, I think this is what they're up against. There was a lot of balloons, a lot of, a couple of flares, things like that. But then as soon as the game started, it stopped. The chanting stopped. There was Chancery, get out of our club. There was sell up and go. DC don't care about me. But it just didn't continue through the game. Did anybody else notice that? Like, it kind of stopped, tempered as the game started. And I think what dawned on me at this point was it's very easy in social media to kind of get wrapped up in what other people are doing, and you really feel like you're living this world and everybody else thinks the same as you. But the way the algorithm works is that they're telling you that this person thinks the same as you and that type of thing. And then I realized, and you look around and there's families there that just go to the football, just spend some time with each other. And I felt at that moment, as the game started, as the balloons died down, if you're organizing a protest, and this isn't a slight on the protest, don't get me wrong, I feel like there's a bigger fight there than what social media opinion has garnered. Does that make sense? I'm not having a dig at anybody or anything. I think change is needed. And I was digging out some old videos from 2 years ago, and I am not very complimentary about our chairman. So I was going to dig them and show you them tonight, but I'll put them in a montage for you at the end of the season. So, Beth, where you personally, I want to give you a bit of a soapbox. My apologies for coming to you first, but I've spoke lengthy there about what it is. Where do you sit on it? Were the minutes an accurate representation? Is the questions that were asked? Was the protest a success? Did it garnered some newspaper column inches or virtual newspaper column inches? There's been a lot of chat about that. Tell me your end.
If we're going chronologically again, I think starting with the minutes, I think they're as accurate as they could be for a 6-hour meeting. I wasn't there, but it's the same as his fans forums. Like, you'll sit in the room with him for 6 hours, and when you come away, despite having spent that much time and there's that many words actually being used, there's very little you can actually take away of substance. Like,
I would be inclined to agree. I've literally written, is DC's attitude in this, is it a mini fans forum? Because I felt like it was quite knocking away, you know what I mean? Because again, with the fans forum, I think we go into them thinking that this is a back and forth, this is a feedback session, and there are meetings prior where they go in and practice the questions to make them as succinct as possible, and what you get is a wave of noise to come back, and to truncate the minutes into about 8-9 pages. I don't think that there's much noise in those minutes that are missing. But then why did Ian offer to resign?
It always kind of reminds me of when I was at school, we used to have to do this thing called a lot about a little. And I feel like Chancery is the king of that, because it's the news there is what he doesn't want to sell. He might do this, he might do that. There's nothing of substance to share, and you have to then thoughts gone, like zoom out again. But chronologically moving on to the protest, I thought that was excellent. It was really good to see it so well attended, both kind of in town and through the park. I think the press estimated 4 figures, of people.
Wow.
Which is fantastic. Yeah, I'm really, really glad that went well, and I think it's
No
a
trouble either.
nice.
No trouble. There was a lot of mentions about,
Yes.
when the guys have tried to give out flyers before and the abuse that they got. That's not
Hmm.
happened this time around. This one felt different, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a nice kind of punctuation mark for the end of the season to have had that many people come together. It's a shame of the timing that we now don't have any more home games left. We're probably not going to go to Hillsborough for 3 months. I'm interested to see where it kind of goes from here. Is my kind of parting thought, I guess. It's how do we keep harnessing this energy and this motivation when it's not going to be in our faces every week like it is when you're going to Hillsborough every other Saturday. So it's an interesting time, but I'm cautiously optimistic, I think.
What about you, John? Give me the, give me the middle-aged white man version of it.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the pictures. I wasn't around it myself in terms of the marching through Hillsborough Park, like you saw on various videos and people upload into social media, etc. But there was certainly a big presence there, weren't there? You could see there were a lot of people there. There were banners, there were flares, there were lots of signs, and it's quite vocal. But as we've alluded to already, it was respectful. It wasn't aggressive, but it was determined, and it was loud. And you're
that
right.
Was a lot of adjectives there, John, and they're all spot on. I enjoyed that. That was good.
No worries. Yeah, and I do agree. It didn't quite translate into the ground, perhaps because of the dispersing. We don't all sit in the same area, do we? So you might have got a percentage of those on the Cot, some in the south and the north, etc. But I think there's a little bit of confusion as well, because we did the turning round a week before, didn't we? Turn you back on what's meant to be the 10th minute, but always ends up being the 11th minute, which is a bit weird. And I think this time, because people have got the balloons, they got the colours on, they got the flyers. They were all kind of a bit like trying to do okey cokey, something, people forgetting the moves and stuff. You know what I mean? And so it kind of, once in the ground, I think it lost its effectiveness, because we've been hearing the Chancery chants for weeks now. But in terms of like a visual representation of the unrest and unhappiness within the fan base, I thought it was more effective in the park than it was in the stadium. If that makes sense.
It was very visual. It was very visual, and the walk through the park looked amazing. Yeah,
it did. It got attention. It made local, it made local newspapers, and no doubt it found its way onto the local message boards and stuff like that. So, yeah, there's an absolute unrest there, and rightly so. Because fans are also critiques, and will always critique managers, will critique owners, will critique players. And when you're coming up to a 10-year anniversary and you're basically probably worse off than when you started, you're going to get criticism, and rightly so. I mean, that's the fact of it, isn't it? You spent 150 million, and we're no better off than when you took us over for 30 million. So that's not good business, is it?
It is not good business. Now, there on the day as well was Chancery's family, hence the over exuberance of stewards there as well. I'm just going to go through a couple of comments before I come to you, Simon. John Wakefield said you missed the timeline of the reissuing of the minutes after the Trust tweet. That was an interesting one. Yes, they did. The club then reissued the minutes again with a contentious point. I wish I could remember what it is, but I wrote these notes late last night and I forgot that bit. So thank you for pointing that out, John. Blair's been on once again. Woo, Blair. He said, "What's the point? Even getting any hopes up for next season, he'll do something next season to fuck it up. It's not even fun supporting us anymore. The best protest you can do is stop going." And this is, I think I said this a couple of years ago on this show, that I think we can shout and scream and dance and pop as much as we like. I feel like we're going to be howling at the moon to an extent. We're going to be old man yells at cloud. I think we just have to stop going, and I think that we'll all get there in the end, and I think we'll all realize that. The issue that we have is, there was a comment earlier on from Matt Strickland saying we all want to go to the footy to escape the daily rigors of life and forget. It's hard when those differences turn up at the place where you go to escape. Some people may agree, but we don't want to show it, because what we're fighting against here now is a mental battle with ourselves. You know what I mean? So, for example, Simon, you go with your son. That's time that you spend with your son. Same with Ash and Stevie with Molly, right? And it's just time where you get that afternoon together and you can come and shout and spit and swear, and you know what I mean? And you've got a shared interest, and it's wonderful for that. And then on the other hand, you've got people protecting who've had their seats for 20 years. You think of that mural on the front of the ground. I've had these seats years. It says a lot more than just a nice bit of graffiti. That's what it is. It's people protecting that type of environment of what they're doing, and they're clawing on to something that I don't believe is there anymore. I've got notes from the minutes here, and it does go into mentioning about getting refunds for next season. If I could get a refund, I'd take it right now, because I think that's the only way we're actually going to send a message, unless some of these tweets, some of these consortiums, some of these bids that come in, and they all take place, then I'll, then great, then fine. But if given the choice again, I wouldn't buy a season ticket in January for a great for the most expensive one in the league as it stands right now. Now Leeds have been promoted. Simon, where do you stand on it?
Okay, so God, there's a lot to dissect, isn't there?
Lots going on, mate.
There is. So in regards to the protest point of view, I took the decision to. We had a drink in Hillsborough, myself and my son. I took the decision to go to the protest, but to view it from afar, because I wanted to see the extent of it. So we actually stood when they started near Hillsborough Library. We went and saw them get together, and then we walked towards the ground before they set off. And what took me in was so many people walking towards us to where the protest was going on, in the yellow and black, etc. Then we chose to walk round and stand by the bridge and actually watch them walk in, which was hugely impressive. And hats off to the people who were amongst that. I wanted to stand on the fringes and watch them come in, completely support what they're doing. Wasn't quite so keen. I think myself and Stevie got pillared a little bit on Twitter in regards to the wording of the banner. I understand the sentiment in regards to the word toxic, but as we know as a fan podcast, there's some wonderful people in the club who aren't. The man is the issue. From a personal point of view, I think we've reached the point now where he needs to go. I have decided if there would be a refund this season, I would not refund, but I have made a decision that if he's in charge when we come to the early bird in January 2026, I'll not be renewing, because we're not going anywhere. The guy is not a businessman, despite him telling everybody that he is a businessman. How can you have an organised meeting and it lasts 6 hours? That in itself points to the fact is that the man...
It's like when I have a week off of this podcast and we're chucking out 90-minute episodes.
Mate, yeah, I apologise. And, if we can't get a meeting right and we cannot say this meeting will be 2 hours, if we cannot get all the points done in 2 hours, then there is something wrong fundamentally. If we can't get meetings right, how can we run a business correctly? And it absolutely proves all the way along the line that we are lurching now from disaster to disaster. There's no positivities coming out. Every season now we have whose contractors run out, we're issuing 1 year contracts. So every year we come to a point where Josh Windass, is he going to bring a video out? Is he signing again? What's happening with Barry Bannon, who's now 84 years old? All these things, and it happens every year. There's no future planning. There's no planning that we're seeing at all. If I can see any benefit that's coming out of what's going on at the moment, and this is down to everybody who's vocal about the ownership, is the fact that for the first time in a long, long time, the press and people are talking about takeovers. And that's got to be a good thing. We might have somebody saying he owns a jet from Africa who says he owns an airline and photoshopping his face on the tail of an aircraft. But eventually we will get to the point where somebody will come in with the money and buy us. The issue we've got is we have an owner who would rather spite us. And I really do think this is what he is like. He'd rather spite the fan base because we've turned against him than sell the club. And this is the really worrying thing. At least in the past, we have had people, be it Dave Allen, not the best of owners, Milan Mandaric, great. He steadied the ship, but never invested in the club. You know, we've had people in the past who were willing to be sold. That problem I have with Chansiri is I think he is such a narcissist that he will not sell us just to spite us, especially, sorry to go on a bit, especially if all of a sudden somebody comes out, one of these people that keeps shouting on X and so on and so forth, is that they know everything that's going on. As soon as somebody comes out and goes, I know that Joe Bloggs from wherever is coming in and he's bidding 10 million, Chansiri will just draw the shutters up and that'll be it over. And that's the worry I have.
Do you know what? A lot of people agreeing with you out there, Simon. We've got Well Said Simon. We've got Lol Simon, exactly. We've got what business spends next year's money this year. Mad Wood says, bang on, Si. Somebody does disagree with you and says Basil would stay till he's 84. Defo, to be fair. And then, you know, there's a lot more of the calculating side of it. Said he made that meeting last that long as he knew people had to balance work with the meeting. He was just making it difficult for the EP members, and I'm going to get onto that in a moment. People referencing the word toxic meaning relating to being an asset that's lost so much value, cannot be sold on the market. To an extent, yeah, but I feel like, you know, that's the literal translation of the word. To call the whole club toxic, I feel like if I was working in the club shop, I'd be a bit like, no, is it? Sauce pal. You know what I mean? But I completely take your point. I don't think it was meant that way. Of course it wasn't. You know what I mean? I just feel it's just semantics. Let's not lose our mind, because as it stands right now, the SWFC hashtag, specifically on X, is an absolute toilet right now. And everybody is looking for an opportunity to jump down everybody's throat. I feel like we've probably said some in these last 37 minutes that's going to wind somebody up, because we're all so angry and we're all so pissed off. More people saying spot off, Simon. You know, some people making reference to things like we can't stop going. So we can't stop going because it's a way of life. And that is why we are essentially rewarding Chansiri with the high ticket prices and the shittery that it's given us, because there's things like Jake's posted here saying we can't stop going because it's a way of life. I take my 6-year-old and it's so important to me. And now him. We can force national media attention, which will turn force change. It's the beginning of the end. I think that's a nice idea, Jake, and I completely agree why you maintain going, and that's why Simon's gone for the number of years, and that's why, you know, there's going to be generations of people just like that, dad and lad, go to the football, you know, mother, daughter, sons, there's whole families there. There's those little kids that all sit at the front of the South Stand that go, come on Wednesday. Actually, I'm pretty sure that's who Gaz is lampooning. I feel like that's what we're fighting against in terms of trying to get a protest together. You know what I mean? I feel like there's a lot of deep-seated. We are a city with 2 very well-supported clubs, and you know the irony is that the announcement was 28,000 people on Saturday during a protest, which means we've got something like 23,000 season tickets. 5,000 more people bought a ticket for that game. You know what I mean? It's the last game of the season. People wanted to go with the families regardless of what's going on. Some people might have wanted to go for the protest, but this is what we're fighting against, right?
Can I just say, Dan, that I think if the protests continue, even if it doesn't continue inside the ground, because at the end of the day, we still want to support the team, right? We still want to support the players. But if they can, if those numbers, and if they do it again, I will join them, and I'm sure a few of us will as well, is if the fans who keep sniping at each other can unite, and we can stop saying it's the Owls Trust and it's Wednesday fans creating this protest, Wednesday fans as a whole, be it the women's supporters group, be it the Rainbow Owls, be it whoever, right? Everybody stands there in front with the flares in the park and then in front of the bridge and just let every match, it does that. And then we go and support the team, go and sit in our seats, we dissipate and sit in the grandstand, this, that, and the other. Then if that carries on, that's what we need to do. You know, the show of, I'm sure we'll talk about it, the show of force of what's said to be bizarre. It was almost took me back to the bloody miners' strike when we went in and saw all these stewards dressed in. Did you notice orange, not yellow, by the way?
I did notice
in orange.
That, yeah.
Yeah. And you know, then just put that down. Let's watch the game, support the team. But outside, be vociferous. Be like we did. If we do that every game, and that happens and brings everybody together, change will have to happen, because in the end, the guy who runs that club will have nowhere to turn because he knows he
But
is
what,
universally
I guess the
disliked.
question that we're all going to get to when we get to the end is, if we're still spending our money and going, why should he give a shit what we're all chanting in a park? And I know that sounds really straight to the point, but I don't think he's self-aware enough to give two flying Jeffs what we're all chanting around in Hillsborough Park. You know what I mean? I think he's that arrogant, if that makes sense to me. So, you know, next season that we're going to call this the Hallam FC week or the Sheffield FC week. You know what I mean? we'll just completely rebrand. We'll pick another club like Wimbledon did, and I can see that's what's going to happen.
I had thought that when he
I
thought that when he brought on because for this particular round of interaction with the fans groups and stuff, he had brought an interpreter this time, hadn't he? So I had thought maybe that, you know, one of the things that gets labelled, and I don't necessarily buy it, but it's being said, is that some things in the past have got lost in translation. So I thought, okay, fair enough, smart move. Yeah. Let's bring on the interpreter. Everything's out in the open, everything's transparent, no room for error there. And it was still hugely disappointing. Some of the things that we read and some of the things that were said, it was still hugely disappointing as a Wednesday fan to hear this and read some of those things.
John, that is a wonderful segue. I'm going to just remove Tom's comment from the screen there, but it says, I don't think it's for the fans to tell each other to go protest, whatever feels comfortable for you personally. I agree. What I'm going to do, I'm going to talk for a really long time. What's going to seem like ages because I want to get through some of the headlines from these notes. So this was the first one. And Chansiri says, you know, just to cut it out, it's on the screen now. It says, if anyone can say that they're in the market without any official offer, they cannot be treated as genuine. He said if a potential investor wishes to pursue interest through the right channels and follow the right procedures, he would be open to discussions regarding a sale. Interesting, right? So he's open to discussions. There's been news today. Alex Miller and Joe have released an article today about a potential investment, but that was immediately dismissed because of Adam Shaw's involvement. And we know they've had a very public tear up in the past. I think it was last season before, about owed money and things like that. And instead of talking to him under the table, Adam Shaw decided he was going to go and sit in Rob Statton's office and sound off about it. And so anything with Adam Shaw's name to it is going to get absolutely thrown out the water. And apparently the offer was derisory. So a lot of people talking about that today online. But if you haven't got the money, you know, I'll offer you a tenner for it, DC. I'm pretty sure you're going to turn that down. You know what I mean? So that's where we are with that. You going to add, Si?
Well, just that there was a lot of contradiction in the minutes, wasn't there? Because he talks about wanting a fair amount of money, but then he also talks about selling, not wanting a huge amount of money and selling it to somebody who's got the best intention for the club. Yeah. You know, but that, why should I be surprised? Because that's been DC for 10 years now, hasn't it? You know, of
course it does.
It's. I've heard some.
It's ironic, isn't it, that a person like he is wanting to conduct his own fit and proper persons test to sell a club to someone else. I mean, the
irony.
Not wasted on me.
No, not at all.
Right. So, and then I've got 4 more points from the minutes. So, minutes point 2. When asked about being sustainable, DC maintained that higher wages would be an issue. Excuse me. I wanted to know what players in the panel identified as saleable. The panel saw no value in naming names, and DC doubled down. So this was a really interesting one. If you get the opportunity to pause this video or have a look at the minutes online, if you're listening to this, there was a really interesting point, Beth, in this thing where he kept going, well, who was it then? Who do you think then? Like it seemed like a real schoolyard chat. Like, you know, the trust have come up and the EP have gone, can we make ourselves more sustainable, buy and sell a few players? And he's gone, well, who are you going to sell then? Because, you know, the next ridiculous comment's going to be, well, nobody put a bid in for him. You know, it's childish, isn't it?
For sure. That was literally exactly what I was going to say when you asked me. That it's childish and it's a good...
Yeah, but who are you going to sell, though? And that's exactly it. It's just like, as soon as you keep talking, yeah, but who were it, though? Who were you going to sell?
Yeah.
Who were it? One name that got mentioned was Fernando Forestieri, which he actually did concede, didn't he? He actually did. He did concede that Fernando Forestieri was a sellable asset, and he should have done something about it. But Beth, who are you going to sell?
Don't know. I'm too sentimental.
And I think he is. They can all go for me. We played Contract Tinder last week, and we'll be playing it next week. And I tell you what, they're all out the bloody door. I'm sharpening my sticks as we speak. Third one here, John. When asked about the structure of the club, DC says that he has a number of greatly experienced advisors with a lot of experience in football and other areas. Well, whoever he's got advising him in football and the other areas, what was the term you used about that set piece coach?
Stealing a wage. Absolutely.
Stealing a wage.
I mean, come on. We've had a biscuit committee. We've had an ex-football manager. We've had somebody who's more interested in rugby than football. We've had somebody who was that bad to run out of Charlton Athletic and probably can never go back there again. And then we get like Paxo, who's being given, he's just signed some of the worst players for massive money, no resale value. And these are trusted advisors. Jesus, I won't want to get Chansiri drunk, would you? Good God.
Yeah.
Could end up in a canal somewhere.
We also had a message here from Jake, and he says the interpreter just happened to be a lawyer, full bully boy tactics, and I really agree. Like, this is my interpreter. He's also a lawyer. There you are. What about that? I brought the lawyer here, kids. And that's the first time I've done the voice tonight. I had a whole plan of what I was going to do this evening. And then minutes point 4, DC clarifies the status of season tickets next year. So essentially, what's on screen now is him saying, no refunds. Thanks for coming. You know what I mean? So that's essentially what's happening. Simon, you mentioned earlier that you'd keep next season's. What about you guys? Have you got any... did you think, you know what, sod this, I've got better things to spend money on, or you're going to give it one more season now you've already paid? Obviously.
I think I always get drawn in because it's as much as going
just
to
when
the
you
game,
thought you was out.
Yeah, the old Al Pacino gif, isn't it? But it's the pull of the whole match day thing, meeting up with your pals, having the pre-match stuff, and then the game. I mean, I've been going like with Irvine at the helm. I mean, don't get much worse than that, does it? But we'd go for a drink at half time, and we'd have about 2 pints before we got back. We got back on about 55, 60 minutes because it was like that bad. But I'm still going because it's Wednesday and I love to go, and I love the whole experience as a package. The pre-match stuff, the meeting up with friends, the halftime stuff, then obviously the game as well. And so I signed up for early bird, but I
live in London, and I bought a season ticket.
But I understand people.
And I bought a Range Rover and moved to London, right? And I thought that was the worst investment I'd ever made.
Yeah.
Turns out it's not.
You see, I live in Northampton, and that seems too far away, and you live in London. What the hell? Ridiculous.
I tell you what, as well. Here, I've got Tom's been on. He says I'm struggling to understand the DC quotes without the voice, and Sharman's absolutely just dug me out here. He goes, "Has anyone seen Den Perry and Chansiri in the room together?" That's where I got the voice from. I think you will find. And finally on the minutes, I know I've smashed through them. I do want you to take a proper look at the minutes and have a good scroll through. They are truncated somewhat, but I really don't feel like we're missing anything juicy. And the last one here says, finally, DC expressed his disappointment about the meeting of the trust prior to the meeting. So the trust got together to discuss what they were going to ask DC, because they knew that what this would be a truncated fans forum and it'd be a load of waffle. And then they've come back, and then essentially it's been a load of waffle. And then he's got angry that they've all got together. I can't believe you had a meeting behind me back, you rat bastards. That's what's happened.
So basically what they've done is they've gone and been professional.
Yeah,
and actually planned
it properly.
And done it properly and decided
and
how they wanted it. And he's swept.
And he's very unhappy about all that.
So are we in some alternative matrix where like they've plugged us in and they've just gone, right, what we're going to give them? We could give them Arsenal. We could give them Man City. I know, let's give them Sheffield Wednesday. I've obviously kicked one too many dogs in my life, haven't I?
Yeah, that's it.
We're
in an episode of Black Mirror.
Yeah.
But what you were saying earlier as well, it's like you have these 6-hour meetings and then that's not enough. It becomes statement wars then. It's like, oh, hang on a minute. I weren't happy with all those things that were discussed in that meeting. I'm gonna put out a statement to say I wasn't happy about those things, and I didn't get agreement to get them signed off. And then some poor soul thinks, oh, that maybe I messed up there. I'll offer my resignation. No, you're not offering your resignation. We'll put a statement out and get them back. It's like it just becomes a ding dong of statements, and you think, hang on a minute, they just had 6 hours and they couldn't conclude
and it's
anything.
all It's all derailing track. And where are we? Where are we before, after, and now? Where, you know what I mean? Because he's derailed it so much.
I'll go back to what I was saying about 10 minutes ago. He's not a businessman. And where are we after 10 years? We're in the same hole. In fact, no, actually, we're worse off because we haven't got Fernando Forestieri playing for us. We're not on the cusp of the playoffs to get into the Premier League. You know, we don't own his grounds.
I tell you what, Simon, it's been absolutely sewn up really well here by Jake. Jake's gone. The man whose meetings result in stocks of Pro Plus hitting the roof, complaining about folk having meetings. The irony, and we've got Matt Strickland saying he's got more statements than Ash has got eggs. I don't know if that's a reference to the chocolate eggs or some kind of medical problem that he may or may not have. Listen, I would recommend you reading Alex's article about the bid. I feel like it's nice that it was put together. I just don't feel that the money and the person behind it were the big sticking points. Essentially, I'd recommend you look at that, and I'd recommend you look at the meeting minutes, all available on our socials. Go on, John.
I'm just going to say, I think one good thing about the bid, whether it's been derisory or not, is that it's actually, well, I don't know if it's bid or approach, to be honest. So I don't want to be factually incorrect. But the fact that it's landed on his doorstep is further than it's got before. And it's put information out there that might be potentially a sale down the line. So that'll have alerted a lot of other people.
Yes, with it being in the news, it could actually put it. Somebody's gone, oh, he's actually listened to it, he's entertained it, and then dismissed it. You know what I mean? It's not just that, nope, see you later, which it probably was, to be fair. Right, I need a deep breath and a glass of water.
Brace yourself. Some people are gonna try and sell you some things.
I may or may not have played the wrong video. Ladies and gents, tonight, Hot Topic.
Jesus,
okay, then. I know you've got to brace yourself on that one, kids. If you're driving, you've not crashed. So listen, tonight's Hot Topic, and I thought I'd try and mix it up a little bit. There was a lot of comments this evening talking about Danny Röhl and about how he wasn't the innocent party and all this. And I feel like if he does leave, there's going to be a lot come out in the wash. In the interim, I wanted to ask you a question, and the hot topic, and I want you guys to get involved in the comments as well. Who has been Danny's success story of the season from the non-loan players? Because it'd be easy just to pick Shea Charles, right? And go, Shea Charles, of course it is. Our players, and a lot of them he inherited from Xisco Munoz, who apparently can spot a player, just can't get him to play football. Who's been the success story of the season? Because and while you chew that over, I'm gonna mention a couple of names. So Ihekwe being a great one. Michael Smith has had a good season, a lot better season than what I thought he would. Jeddy Gassama came out of nowhere, had a really rich vein of form. P.S. Charles has managed to get himself in between the sticks and keep it there. There's been a few comments here of Max Lowe, Gassama and Ihekwe, and Max Lowe without a doubt. So we know what they're saying. Beth, what do you think?
I am still here. Right, who is who's my most improved player under Danny this season?
Most improved player sounds like that award you gave to the the other kid that turned up for training every week.
But you're doing your best. Yeah,
I did really well. And he's turned up for training every week and you've done really well. But there's an element where some players have kicked on under Danny Röhl, right?
Yeah.
For Maywood was a suggestion from Hergel McGurgle.
If for Maywood had, again, it's unlucky timing. I think if he'd have had a bigger run now, he's been brilliant since he's come back. So had that, I guess, happened, I think he could be in with a shout. We've just not seen enough of him for me personally at this stage. Ihekwe possibly for me, just because that kind of the League One legacy crew, I guess we're starting to say goodbye to, and I really didn't think we'd see much of Ihekwe this season at all, but in the circumstances that he's kind of landed in, he's been amazing, apart from that one moment in the derby that happened right in front of me.
God. I agree with you. He's who I'd have said, Beth. I completely agree. I think given the football that's played in the Championship, it played right into his hands. And to say we got him for a bit of a steal in League One, and then made him stay in the league a year longer, and then I thought, oh, he's probably going to be out the door. Him and Smudge now, that they're League One players, and I think the pair of them have come up and held their own somewhat. You know what I mean? I won't go as far as saying that they're tearing up trees, but in their own vein of their form. But I also feel that yeah, Danny's big success was the Heckway. What about yourself, John?
Yeah, you mentioned and the viewers' comments as well mentioned some great candidates there. I think there's various players that have been lifted up at various times by Danny Rule. I think we've mentioned there, we've seen the emergence of Gassama, although it seems to be simmering down somewhat now. We've also seen Musaba as well. Again, we know they're we've already spoke about those before. I think for me though, I think I'd have to agree Max Lowe, because not only did he come in as a left back, he transitioned to a centre half, and an undersized one at that, when you consider what you want from a centre half in the Championship, and he performed absolutely outstanding. And before he got injured as well, and I think had he not got injured, I think by far and away the most improved player and best player would have been bids coming in for him would have been Deshaun Bernard. I think he would have been running away with the Player of the Year award if he'd have stayed fit, but sadly we lost him to injury. I mean, I know there's Charles, but we're talking about non-loan players, so I know Simon's shaking his head, but I think that Bernard would have been an absolute baller for the end all the way through.
Did you?
But yeah,
Bernard. But yeah, Max Lowe.
But Max Lowe, because he went a lot longer than Bernard was lost.
I think he's great, and I tell you what, he's an absolute bloody dreamboat as well. He's another one of them players that I do not want to stand next to. It's not good for my self-esteem. Simon, wrap it up, and then I'll get into what the unwashed are saying out there. Terry's been on, he's here and all, he's watching.
My thoughts is the sow's ears into silk purses, because Max Lowe's already played in the Premier League. I think Deshaun Bernard, I'll be honest with you, I've been disappointed with him this season. I thought it was super.
Same. John Wakefield's come on and said exactly the same. I didn't think Dish was doing that well before his injury. Not his normal high standards, right?
So you've got to look at the players that we got, that we brought in for peanuts, that we brought in. And I have to agree with Beth in regards to Michael Heckway, who has won my Ballon d'Or for the head this season. I also think Michael Smith, because I remember sitting at work last year watching a game in Austria where it was red hot in Austria, and we were playing Michael Smith up front against, I can't remember who it was now, and I couldn't get over, so I watched it on YouTube.
Was it the Werder Bremen pre-season game?
I think it might have been Werder Bremen, yeah, I think it might have been, and I got a bit of an invested interest because I'd seen Werder Bremen play Hertha a few months before at the Olympic Stad. Anyway, and I thought this is probably a bit part player. Michael Smith's going to be a bit part player. Yeah. And you know what? He, for me, would be, if you were picking a striker this season, would have been the first one on the team sheet. Heckway, I thought, has been superb. And Femwo, until his injury, and we've seen bits of him since he came back, was an absolute colossus prior to getting injured. And these are all players who we got for bugger all, that we brought in because we're not buying players. And at the time, it was it Darren Moore who signed him, or was it Cisco? I can't remember who actually signed these players, to be honest. And they were all bought on.
It's
they
like
were all
4 managers ago, mate. I've no idea.
They were all bought on pick and mix. It was a couple of spice racks and some jammy dodgers and this, that, and the other for them.
Spice
and yeah, I know. It's just the shit that goes on in here, Dan, is just unbelievable.
That was impressively random. I enjoyed that.
And you know what? The guys who have come in and have been here for ages have actually improved under Danny.
Yes.
You sign a Max Lowe, you expect to get a Max Lowe because he's played in Premier League. He's a good player. Valerie's a good player.
I think what you said there got some merit, because obviously when we looked at it as well, when like you mentioned there, those 2 freebies that we got from Rotherham and Smith and the Heckway did look like they would be casualties of a rebuild for the Championship, didn't they? They did look like they would be the ones that would be moved on. And they've raised the game up, with Danny's methods and everything, and become integral parts of the club. And now we just mentioned both in the same breath as being one of the stand-up players of the season. So it's brilliant. Because I thought Heckway was on his way out. A few months ago in the pod, I said he'd be the one I think would be cut free, leading up to January. And here we are talking about him as like being one of the players of the season. So that's just testament to the bond that they've got with a manager and how he's lifted them up, and they've responded.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, as I mentioned before, Max Lowe has been the popular one in the comments there. Max Lowe, and then we've had the answer to all questions is Pato. Then Slappy's gone on Pato, the Scottish Brazilian, and then Chef Cam's been on and he goes, "Hail Pato, saviour of the universe." So Pato getting some love. And then we also had a comment from Terry that I put up earlier on, and Neon Brown, based on an episode we had Terry on recently. Terry's only allowed in the comments now in case his mobile rings. It was the house phone that rang. Neon Brown, it was the house phone that rang. Who still has house phones? But listen, to get through that lot and still make it an hour, I'm really impressed with that. But we do have a few final bits, and I'll leave one for you here, Beth, on this one. So Armed Forces Owl had a charity walk from Portsmouth to Hillsborough, which is a hell of a bloody way to raise money. So fair play to Scott. Met Deschamps Bernard when he got to the ground as well. Absolute big shout out to him. Imagine walking all that way and then just catching the protest as you get in. You're like, God, you wouldn't want to be Deschamps Bernard in that moment, would you? You know what I mean? I met Adam on Saturday, and a top guy. So if you are interested in the Armed Forces Owls, please reach out and get in touch. Beth, last night you were there. Shay Charles nominated for Young Player of the Year, and Josh Windas's goal nominated for Goal of the Season. Bullshit, wasn't it?
Innit? Yeah, I am. Right, we were getting quite heated about this last night. So the goal of the season, there was those 3 goals. Josh is obviously sensational. When that got played in the room, everyone was gasping and clapping. The Mark Harris one is another very good goal. That kind of reminded me of Josh's from Blackburn away last season, which is also a fantastic goal. And then the crap goal wins it. That was the worst of the 3.
Did you boo? I mean, you clearly a few glasses of vino here down now. Did you go boo on you like I did with E17 on a Butlins adult break?
No, I was very well behaved. I'm not surprised that Shay didn't get the young player with who he was up against, but Josh was robbed.
But listen, lads, fair play for getting nominated in the first place. That was a lot to get through. Thank you so much for joining me this evening, Beth, Simon, John. I am well dry. I am arid at the back of my throat right now, so I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for getting involved in the comments. Make sure you press like and subscribe. Don't forget to do that. And I'll see you next week for the last game of the season before I have a nap. See you later.
Every week, live from 8 p.m. It's the Wednesday week, bringing you football analysis.
He came in. I think he scored a goal.
Bringing you banter.
Yeah.
Bringing you responsible life hacks.
Met you wonderful souls at 10 a.m. for some shots.
The Wednesday week. 1, 2, 3, 4 live. Available on all social medias.
Obviously, this goes out on YouTube and as well as all the other social media out there, podcasts, etc.
The Wednesday week 24-25 season. Join us.
Put on your podcast.